Close your eyes. Imagine you have spent 3 years rolling a snowball down a hill. It starts small, but every rotation picks up more snow. By year 3, the snowball is enormous, taller than you, heavy enough that it could roll on its own. Now imagine someone kicks it. Hard, the snowball shatters. You are standing at the bottom of the hill with a pile of snow. Pause, and here is the question. Do you panic and walk away, or do you start rolling again? Open your eyes, because that snowball is your investment portfolio. The hill is time. The kick is a market crash, and the single decision you make in the 3 minutes after the kick, whether to walk away or start rolling again, will determine more about your financial future than every other decision you make this decade combined. Most people walk away. A small group of people start rolling again, and by the time the snowball reaches the bottom of the next hill, the gap between those two groups is not 10%. It is not 20%. It is the difference between building wealth and spending the rest of your life wondering why it never happened. This video is for the people who want to understand the mechanism well enough that when the crash comes, and it will come, they already know exactly what to do. There is one assumption that makes most investors vulnerable, and it sounds completely reasonable until the moment it destroys your returns. The assumption is this: a market crash is an emergency, and in an emergency, you need to act. Here is the status check. The market drops 30% in a month. Your portfolio is deep in the red. Every news channel is using the word catastrophe. Your gut is screaming that you need to do something. Sell, get out, stop the bleeding. Here is the luxury. Acting feels responsible. Staying still feels passive. Surely doing something is better than doing nothing. And besides, you can always buy back in when things settle down. Here is the suck factor. The people who sell during crashes and wait for things to settle down are the same people who miss the recovery. And the recovery, as we will show you with real numbers shortly, is where almost all the long-term returns live. A study by Fidelity found that investors who held a broad index fund from 1980 to 2022 would have turned $10,000 into $182,000. But if they missed just the 5 best trading days across those 42 years, just 5 days out of more than 10,000, they walked away with only 67,000, missed the best 50 days, and they ended up with 7,000, less than they started with. The crash did not hurt them. Their response to the crash hurt them. The emergency instinct is the enemy, and today we are going to replace it with a system. Here is what this video covers. First, why compounding is more fragile than most people realize, and the specific mathematical reason that losses hurt far more than gains help. Second, how often crashes actually happen, because the answer will surprise you. Third, 3 concrete things you can set up today, before any crash arrives, that will turn market drops from disasters into opportunities. And fourth, the psychology problem that defeats most investors, and a simple solution that removes emotion from the equation entirely. None of this requires you to predict the future. None of it requires you to time the market. It only requires you to understand the mechanism and set up the system before you need it. Let us start with compounding, because most people understand it in one direction and almost nobody understands what it does in reverse. Compounding is the process where your money earns returns, and then those returns earn returns on top of themselves. Think of it like a fruit tree. In year 1, you plant it. In year 2, it grows branches. In year 3, those branches grow their own branches. By year 10, the tree is producing fruit from branches that grew from the original trunk. The growth accelerates over time because each new layer builds on every previous layer. Here's the math on a simple example. You invest $10,000. Year 1, you earn 10%. You now have $11,000. Year 2, another 10%. You have $12,100. Year 3, 10% again. You are at $13,310. The tree is growing. Now here is the part nobody explains clearly. In year 4, the market drops 40%. You are not at 14,000 anymore. You are at 7,986. You have lost everything you gained in years 1, 2, and 3, plus a chunk of your original 10,000. But here is the critical insight. To get back to where you were, you do not need a 40% gain. You need a 67% gain, because the math of losses is not symmetrical. If you have $100 and it drops 50%, you have $50. To get back to 100 from 50, you need a 100% gain, not 50%. 100. This is called the asymmetry of losses, and it is the most important concept in personal finance that almost nobody explains with a concrete number. Here is the micro skit. Two friends are talking after a bad week in the market. Friend 1 says, "My portfolio is down 30%. I just need it to go back up 30% and I will be even." Friend 2 says, "That is not how it works." Friend 1 says, "What do you mean?" Friend 2 says, "If you have $100 and it drops 30%, you have 70. To get back to 100 from 70, you need a 43% gain, not 30. Friend 1 stares at him. He says, "That seems deeply unfair." Friend 2 says, "Yes, that is why we do not sell." The asymmetry of losses is the reason that timing the market is so dangerous. Every time you sell and plan to buy back later, you are not just risking missing the recovery, you are guaranteeing that if you miss even part of the recovery, your hole gets deeper, not shallower. Before we talk about what to do, we need to reset your expectations about how normal crashes are, because one of the biggest psychological traps in investing is treating a market downturn as a rare catastrophe rather than a predictable feature of the system. Think of the stock market like a motorway. Most of the time, traffic flows. Occasionally, there is a slowdown. Every few years, there is a real accident that backs everything up for hours. And every decade or so, there is a major pileup that closes the road entirely. The motorway is not broken when traffic slows down. That is just how motorways work. The question is not whether you will hit traffic. The question is whether your plan accounts for the fact that traffic is inevitable. Here are the 3 levels of market decline. A correction is when the market drops at least 10% from a recent high. On average, these have happened roughly every 1.2 years since 1980. So if you have been investing for 5 years without experiencing one, statistically, you have been lucky. Corrections are healthy. They are the market resetting after prices have run ahead of reality. A bear market is when the market drops more than 20%. These happen on average every 4 to 5 years. They typically last around 9 months. Bull markets, the periods when the market is rising, have historically lasted around 32 months on average, more than 3 times as long. The market spends much more time going up than going down. A full crash, a drop of 30% or more, is rarer but real. The 2008 financial crisis, the dot-com collapse from 2000 to 2002, when the technology-heavy NASDAQ index lost nearly 80% of its value. The COVID crash of March 2020, when the S&P 500 fell 34% in 5 weeks, the fastest decline in its history. The point is not to frighten you. The point is to recalibrate. These events are not black swans. They are features of the system. And if you invest for 20 or 30 years, you will live through all 3 categories multiple times. The question is not whether you will face them. The question is whether your plan will hold when you do. Here are the 3 concrete things to set up before any crash arrives, in order of importance. Thing 1. Build a real financial cushion. Most people understand the concept of an emergency fund. What most people do not understand is why it is specifically essential for investors, not just for general financial stability. Think of your investment portfolio like a garden. It needs time to grow. The worst thing you can do is dig up the plants before they have finished growing. But during a market crash, people often need money for real-life emergencies at exactly the same time their portfolio has dropped. Job losses cluster during recessions. Medical emergencies cluster when stress is high. Car repairs do not care about market conditions. If you do not have a separate financial cushion for these events, you will be forced to dig up your garden at the worst possible moment. You will sell your investments when they are cheap, lock in the loss, and miss the recovery. The solution is 3 to 6 months of your full living costs sitting in a high-yield savings account, completely separate from your investment accounts. This money earns a modest return while it waits, and its entire job is to protect your investments from being interrupted by real life. Think of it as insurance for your compounding. You hope you never need it, but without it, every market crash is also a personal financial emergency. Thing 2. Set up automated regular investing and never turn it off. Here is the everyday analogy before the financial term. Imagine you buy groceries every week. Most weeks, the price of chicken is normal. Occasionally, it goes on sale. You do not stop buying chicken when it is on sale. You buy more than usual. The sale is the opportunity, not the warning. Investing at regular intervals, the same amount every week or every month, regardless of what the market is doing, is called dollar cost averaging. And during a crash, it does something automatic and powerful. When prices are low, your fixed monthly amount buys more shares than it did when prices were high. The crash automatically makes you a more efficient buyer. Here is a concrete example. You invest $200 a month into a broad market fund. In month 1, shares cost $20 each. You buy 10 shares. The market crashes. In month 2, shares drop to $10 each. Your same $200 now buys 20 shares. In month 3, the market partially recovers to $15. You buy 13 shares. By the end of 3 months, you have invested $600 and bought 43 shares at an average cost of under $14 each. If the market had stayed flat at $20, you would have bought 30 shares. The crash gave you 13 extra shares for free. The key word is automated. Set this up so the transfer happens automatically every month without you making a decision. Because when your portfolio is in the red and the news is calling it a catastrophe, your brain will tell you to stop. That feeling is exactly when you most need to keep going. Automation removes the decision from the moment of maximum fear. Thing 3, make sure your money is spread across different types of assets. Think of a restaurant that only serves one dish. On a normal day, it does fine. But if there is a beef shortage, or if tastes change, or if one supplier has a problem, the whole restaurant is in trouble. A restaurant that serves 20 different dishes, sourced from different suppliers in different categories, is much harder to destroy with a single problem. Your portfolio is the restaurant. Putting everything into one stock, one sector, or one country is the equivalent of serving one dish. When that dish has a bad year, your whole business suffers. A properly spread portfolio for a long-term investor holds shares across different countries and different industries, includes some bonds for stability because bonds often rise when shares fall, and may include some property exposure through real estate investment funds. The exact percentages depend on your age and how long you have before you need the money, but the principle is the same for everyone. No single area should be able to destroy everything you have built. Here is the micro skit. An investor is reviewing their portfolio after the 2008 crash. Their financial advisor says, "You had 80% of your money in financial stocks." The investor says, "They were the best performing sector for 5 years." The advisor says, "And now they are down 55%. The investor says, "What should I have done?" The advisor says, "Owned everything." Not because everything is good, because nothing is good all the time. And if you own everything, the things that are good right now carry the things that are not. The investor says, "That sounds boring." The advisor says, "Yes, boring is the point." There is a final piece to diversification that matters specifically for crashes. Rebalancing. When one part of your portfolio has crashed and another part has held steady, rebalancing means selling some of what held steady and buying more of what crashed. This forces you to buy low and sell high automatically, the opposite of what panic does. Over a long investing lifetime, rebalancing significantly improves returns because it keeps your whole portfolio compounding rather than just the parts that survive each particular downturn. We need to talk about the psychology, because in the end, the strategy is not the hard part. The hard part is the feeling in your chest when your portfolio drops 30% and everything in your biology is telling you to act. Here is the science. Research by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky found that the pain of losing money is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. In other words, losing $1,000 feels about twice as bad as gaining $1,000 feels good. This is not a character flaw. It is wired into every human brain that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in environments where losing resources was genuinely life-threatening. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a predator and a stock market correction. It just knows things are getting worse. Do something. That instinct has kept our species alive for 200,000 years. It is absolutely lethal to long-term investing. Here is the specific story that illustrates this better than any statistic. Peter Lynch managed a famous fund from 1977 to 1990. Over that period, his fund returned an average of 29.2% per year, one of the best long-term performance records in investment history. But Lynch observed something remarkable. Even though the fund was generating extraordinary returns, many investors in the fund lost money. They bought in when performance was hot and sold when the market dropped. The fund was gaining. The investors were losing because they let the feeling override the system. The solution is not to stop feeling fear. You cannot. The solution is to make all your decisions before the fear arrives, write them down, and commit to following them even when everything in your gut says otherwise. Here is the micro skit. An investor is sitting in front of their laptop watching their portfolio drop. They call their friend. They say, "I cannot watch this. I am going to sell everything." Their friend says, "Did you write a plan when you started investing?" The investor says, "Yes." Their friend says, "What does it say?" The investor pauses. They say, "It says that if the market drops 30%, I will hold and possibly add more." Their friend says, "Right. So you have already made this decision." The investor says, "But that was before I saw the numbers." Their friend says, "The numbers are exactly what you wrote the plan for. Write your plan when you are calm. Follow it when you are not. That is the entire strategy. Let us finish with real numbers, because this is where the mechanism becomes undeniable. Between October 2007 and March 2009, the S&P 500 fell approximately 57%. If you had $100,000 invested at the peak, you watched it fall to around $43,000. Genuinely frightening. But if you had kept investing $500 every month throughout that entire period, buying shares at lower and lower prices as the crash continued, those cheap shares recovered to more than 3 times their purchase price by 2021. The crash was not the problem. The crash was the discount. The same pattern repeated in March 2020. The market fell 34% in 5 weeks. Investors who panicked and sold at the bottom locked in their losses. The market had fully recovered by August 2020, 5 months later. People who kept investing during those 5 weeks bought shares at prices that would triple in the following 2 years. And here is the detail that JP Morgan's research found about those fidelity numbers we mentioned earlier. Many of the best single trading days in market history happened during or immediately after crashes. 7 of the 10 best single days in S&P 500 history happened during the 2008 financial crisis. If you sold during the crash to protect yourself, you did not just lock in your losses. You almost certainly missed the exact days that made the difference between a good investment outcome and an extraordinary one. This is the complete picture. Crashes are normal. They happen every few years. They feel catastrophic. But the investors who come out ahead are not the ones who avoided them. They are the ones who had a financial cushion, so they were never forced to sell, who were investing automatically so they kept buying at lower prices, who were spread across different assets so no single crash could destroy everything, and who had a written plan so they did not make decisions based on what they felt in the moment. Here is the thought experiment that ties this together. Imagine 2 investors. Both start with $10,000 in the same year. Both experience the same 3 crashes over the next 20 years. Both earn the same average market returns. Investor 1 treats every crash as an emergency. She sells when things look bad. She waits until things look stable before buying back in. She misses some of the recoveries. She interrupts her compounding at the exact moments it would have worked hardest for her. Investor 2 treats every crash as a sale. He keeps his monthly investing automated. He has a financial cushion so he never needs to sell. He has a written plan he follows even when it is uncomfortable. He does not do anything clever. He just does not do anything stupid. After 20 years, Investor 1 has not lost. She has modest gains. She is proud of having survived the crashes. Investor 2 has made somewhere between 3 and 5 times what Investor 1 made, using exactly the same amount of money in exactly the same market. The difference is not talent, not timing, not insider knowledge. The difference is that Investor 2 understood the mechanism well enough to leave it alone when everyone else was panicking. The snowball is still at the top of the hill. The kick is coming. We do not know when. We never do. The only real question is whether, when it lands, you walk away from the snow or start rolling again. The people who walk away think they are being careful. The people who keep rolling know they are being patient. And over 20 years, patience is the only advantage that actually compounds.